Good day, everybody. It's Andrew here, and welcome back to my channel. We've got some big updates on the next stimulus package and Social Security changes, as Chuck Schumer is facing pressure to get this stimulus package done by Christmas, as that was the deadline that he set. Now, what's going on with negotiations, and is this actually realistic, or could this deadline change? Let's discuss the details. Of course, all of this is happening as Bernie Sanders is trying to include a stimulus check for seniors in this stimulus package anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000. So let's quickly discuss the details, but before we jump into it, do me a quick favor, hit like, hit subscribe, and share this channel with anyone who you think might find this helpful. This is a community for seniors, and my job is to be a voice for you to make sure President Biden keeps his promise to increase Social Security benefits, increase SSI and SSDI, and even approve a stimulus check for seniors in this next stimulus package. Now, these are all things that President Biden promised on the campaign trail, and we plan to keep him to his word. So thank you so much for being a part of our community, and if you really want to support my work, subscribe to my second channel. The link to that is in the comments of this video, and on that channel we're going to have some updates as well, but we're going to be more of a fun community type place where we play bingo. You guys can play bingo with me. I'm going to be live on camera with a chat, so you can chat with me and chat with the community. We're going to play casino games, and I'm going to be giving away stimulus checks as well. So if you'd like a chance to win some stimulus checks, subscribe to my second channel. And again, thank you so much for supporting my work. The link to that is going to be in the comments of this video. So before we talk about stimulus, potential deadline changes, when we expect to have the stimulus package done, and if it could include a stimulus check for seniors, we're going to cover all of that. But first, let's do a quick update on daily trending news. Now, this article is titled, "Don't Let a Social Security Employee Advise You on What Could Be One of the Most Important Decisions of Your Life." Now, this is referring to when and how you take your Social Security benefits. Now, a lot of people take their benefits too early when they don't have to. Some people actually take them too late. And then sometimes there's strategies you can put in place. Like, for example, a woman in this article said that she actually had a spouse who passed away. She took her own benefit first and allowed her survivor benefit to keep growing, and then eventually transferred over to her survivor benefit once it had matured to the full benefit level that it could. So there's always little strategies you can use depending on timing and your current situation when it comes to when you actually take your benefits and how you take your benefits. So a lot of people actually just call Social Security and they take whatever advice they're given by just some regular employee who might not necessarily be that trained. Don't get me wrong, a lot of them are pretty well trained, but a lot of them are not. A lot of them have worked there for a few months and they really don't know the full nuance, like kind of like a financial advisor would, right? So let me know in the comments. Do you regret how you took Social Security benefits? Were you given bad advice? Do you wish you had done something differently? Let me know in the comments. I just thought this was worth sharing because this has a huge impact on the rest of your retirement, right? So this is something that a lot of people aren't really educated on. And if you're not on Social Security benefits yet, make sure you look into a financial advisor to come up with a strategic plan on exactly when and how to claim your Social Security benefits. Now, as far as trending news with the economy, everybody is talking about interest rates. Jerome Powell just held a press conference yesterday talking about the fact that they're now going to increase interest rates next year. And that's going to have a huge impact on the stock market and the bond market, which, of course, if you're on retirements and you're on Social Security benefits, some people also have bonds, they have stocks, kind of have a diverse portfolio for their retirements. And generally, when interest rates go up, the bond rates go up as well, but then the stock market tends to go down or just not go up as much. So this will impact your retirement portfolio. But the good news is they do expect inflation to be under control by mid next year, which is the number one issue we're worried about now when it comes to costs that seniors are facing. Now, one last update on trending news before we hop into the updates. We're doing a series where we talk about the best and worst states to retire in. And right now we're doing the worst states. And coming in at number 19 is Nebraska. Now, let's take a look and see what they said. And let me know in the comments if you agree. If you're from Nebraska, do you agree with these issues? And do you think it's actually a good place or not such a good place to retire in? Now, at least one famous senior sees something special in Nebraska. Billionaire investor Warren Buffett hasn't left Omaha since buying his home in 1958, but the state has slipped down the rankings since last year. Nebraska's healthcare system is ranked pretty average overall, so not too bad, However, the decent quality comes at the cost of some higher insurance premiums in the country. So, insurance tends to be higher in Nebraska for some reason, and steep income and property taxes make it one of the least tax friendly states for retirees. So, apparently, if you're retired and you're on a fixed income, you're going to have higher income tax and higher property tax compared to other states in the country. So, apparently, that's the main reason when looking at taxes that Nebraska is ranked the 19th worst state to retire in. And again, if you're from Nebraska, let me know in the comments if you agree. Okay, so let's jump into the updates. Chuck Schumer promised to get the stimulus package done by Christmas. As of making this video, that is 9 days away. Then we have Bernie Sanders trying to include a $1,000 stimulus check, which would be sent in the form of a debit card that is supposed to be used for medical expenses, but technically would be accepted anywhere Visa is accepted. Then we have the monthly child stimulus payments, which are currently under attack by Joe Manchin and moderate Democrats, saying that this is the main reason we're having inflation because families are basically getting a monthly stimulus check that costs more than any other stimulus check we've done. See, a lot of people made a huge deal about the unemployment stimulus, but this monthly child tax credit is actually costing about 5 to 6 times more than the unemployment benefits did. And a lot of people are saying that this is kind of a form of unemployment benefits because a lot of families are saying, hey, we're getting $300, $600, $900 a month to take care of our kids. We're going to let one person stay home, whether it's mom or dad. We're not going to work. So it's basically like disincentivizing people from going back to work. Now, don't get me wrong. Families need help, especially families with kids. But the problem here is this child tax credit, in a way, is kind of standing in the way of seniors getting this stimulus check because now that inflation is so bad, Joe Manchin is saying, you know what? If inflation is this bad, we're not going to give seniors a stimulus check. But he wants to also either take it out or lower the monthly child tax credit. So whether it's completely taken out, the amount is lowered, or the amount of people who qualify is lowered, something most likely is going to change with these monthly stimulus checks for families. And the good news is if they do reduce that or they do take it out, that's going to free up more funds to include stimulus checks for seniors. So this is something we're keeping our eye on. Are these monthly stimulus checks for families going to be taken out or lowered? And then if that creates more funding, will that then make it easier for Bernie Sanders to get the stimulus check for seniors included? Because that's going to be a one-time payment. It's not every single month, and it's going to cost about 1/10 of what these monthly child tax credits do, right? So a lot of logic here showing that, hey, if we can give families monthly checks for a year, why can't we give seniors a one-time stimulus check? That's kind of what Bernie Sanders is saying, right? If we can give those who are unemployed weekly stimulus checks for a year and a half, why can't we give seniors one stimulus check, right? So let me know in the comments if you agree. But with that said, Chuck Schumer continues to say that he thinks they can get the stimulus package done by Christmas, but then we have Joe Manchin flipping out about the fact that Democrats are still sticking with a $2 trillion price tag. He is going off about inflation and saying that, you know what, we should actually wait until next year, see how inflation goes the next few months, and then consider doing this stimulus package. And again, his main sticking points are one, inflation, and two, the monthly stimulus checks for families with kids. Now, recently, just last night, he flipped out on reporters asking him whether or not he was going to approve the stimulus package. And this clip here, I believe it's going to show him. I've been having a hard time finding an actual clip, but this says Joe Manchin on Wednesday angrily shouted at reporters, "You are BS." He actually told the reporter, "You are BS," personally, for asking him whether or not he's going to approve the package. The outburst came after the West Virginia senator was peppered with questions about his reluctance to support President Biden's social spending bill. Now, Manchin was being pressed on the fact that he doesn't support continuing these monthly stimulus payments for families with kids. So this week, Joe Manchin and President Biden are having meetings basically every single day. They're trying to work things out. Joe Biden is trying to find a way to get Joe Manchin to agree to do the stimulus package this year. But those who are close to the negotiations are saying that they are still miles apart from getting a deal done. So on the one hand, we have Chuck Schumer almost guaranteeing that they're going to get the stimulus package done by Christmas. Then on the other hand, we have Joe Manchin saying, you know what, maybe we can do it. I'm not sure. And then we have insiders saying that they are still miles apart from agreeing on how to get the stimulus package done. It almost seems like currently Joe Manchin either wants to completely take out that monthly stimulus payment or lower it dramatically in order to get it approved. And that looks like it's going to be a deal breaker for Democrats. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Will Chuck Schumer and liberal Democrats concede to Joe Manchin? Will Joe Manchin agree to actually compromise and maybe do a slightly lower child tax credit? Will Bernie Sanders be able to include the stimulus check for seniors? And again, will it get done by Christmas? Or is this deadline going to change and kind of spill over into 2022? We're going to have a lot of updates in the next couple of weeks, so please subscribe. I will keep you posted as things develop. Again, as Bernie Sanders is trying to include a stimulus check for seniors in this stimulus package. Now, with everything going on, I've been getting a lot of comments from seniors saying, you know what? It's true. Inflation is affecting us really, really strongly. The price of gas is going up. The price of food is going up. The price of meat, of fruit, of rent, utilities are about to skyrocket with winter coming and heating bills about to go through the roof. So people are genuinely concerned about inflation. So just yesterday, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell held a press conference outlining their plan for next year to try and control inflation. And basically what they said is instead of waiting until 2023 to increase interest rates, they're going to slowly increase interest rates next year, as well as taper down the amount of stimulus that they're pumping into the stock market. So this is kind of a balancing act between trying to stop the economy from overheating, but at the same time giving it a soft landing to not kind of push it down into a recession or slow down economic growth so much that you actually do things like increase unemployment and push commodities down and push stocks down and things like that. So this is the balancing act they're trying to do, but they claim it's going to lower inflation and lower costs across the board for people and seniors in this country. So if you want to take a look, see what Fed Chair Jerome Powell said. Let's take a look. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you on the next video.
Strongly committed to achieving the monetary policy goals that Congress has given us: maximum employment and price stability. Today, in support of these goals, the Federal Open Market Committee kept interest rates near zero and updated its assessment of the progress that the economy has made toward the criteria specified in the committee's forward guidance for interest rates. In addition, in light of the strengthening labor market and elevated inflation pressures, we decided to speed up the reductions in our asset purchases. As I will explain, economic developments and changes in the outlook warrant this evolution of monetary policy, which will continue to provide appropriate support for the economy. Economic activity is on track to expand at a robust pace this year, reflecting progress on vaccinations and the reopening of the economy. Aggregate demand remains very strong, buoyed by fiscal and monetary policy support and the healthy financial positions of households and businesses. The rise in COVID cases in recent weeks, along with the emergence of the Omicron variant, pose risks to the outlook. Notwithstanding the effects of the virus and supply constraints, FOMC participants continue to foresee rapid growth. As shown in our summary of economic projections, the median projection for real GDP growth stands at 5.5% this year and 4% next year. Amid improving labor market conditions and very strong demand for workers, the economy has been making rapid progress toward maximum employment. Job gains have been solid in recent months, averaging 378,000 per month over the last 3 months. The unemployment rate has declined substantially, falling 0.6 of a percentage point since our last meeting and reaching 4.2% in November. The recent improvements in labor market conditions have narrowed the differences in employment across groups, especially for workers at the lower end of the wage distribution, as well as for African Americans and Hispanics. Labor force participation showed a welcome rise in November, but remains subdued, in part reflecting the aging of the population and retirements. In addition, some who otherwise would be seeking work report that they are out of the labor force because of factors related to the pandemic, including caregiving needs and ongoing concerns about the virus. At the same time, employers are having difficulties filling job openings, and wages are rising at their fastest pace in many years. How long the labor shortages will persist is unclear, particularly if additional waves of the virus occur. Looking ahead, FOMC participants project the labor market to continue to improve, with the median projection for the unemployment rate declining to 3.5% by the end of the year. Compared with the projections made in September, participants have revised their unemployment rate projections noticeably lower for this year and next. Supply and demand imbalances related to the pandemic and the reopening of the economy have continued to contribute to elevated levels of inflation. In particular, bottlenecks and supply constraints are limiting how quickly production can respond to higher demand in the near term. These problems have been larger and longer lasting than anticipated, exacerbated by waves of the virus. As a result, overall inflation is running well above our 2% longer run goal and will likely continue to do so well into next year. While the drivers of higher inflation have been predominantly connected to the dislocations caused by the pandemic, price increases have now spread to a broader range of goods and services. Wages have also risen briskly, but thus far, wage growth has not been a major contributor to the elevated levels of inflation. We are attentive to the risks that persistent real wage growth in excess of productivity could put to upward pressure on inflation. Like most forecasters, we continue to expect inflation to decline to levels closer to our 2% longer run goal by the end of next year. The median inflation projection of FOMC participants falls from 5.3% this year to 2.6% next year. This trajectory is notably higher than projected in September. We understand that high inflation imposes significant hardship, especially on those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials, like food, housing, and transportation. We are committed to our price stability goal. We will use our tools both to support the economy and a strong labor market, and to prevent higher inflation from becoming entrenched. We will be watching carefully to see whether the economy is evolving in line with expectations. The Fed's monetary policy actions have been guided by our mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. In support of these goals, the committee reaffirmed the 0 to 1/4% target range for the federal funds rate. We also updated our assessment of the progress the economy has made toward the criteria specified in our forward guidance for the federal funds rate. With inflation having exceeded 2% for some time, the committee expects it will be appropriate to maintain this target range until labor market conditions have reached levels consistent with the committee's assessments of maximum employment. All FOMC participants forecast that this remaining test will be met next year. The median projection for the appropriate level of the federal funds rate is 0.9% at the end of 2022, about a half percentage point higher than projected in September. Participants expect a gradual pace of policy firming, with the level of the federal funds rate generally near estimates of its longer run level by the end of 2024. Of course, these projections do not represent a committee decision or plan, and no one knows with any certainty where the economy will be a year or more from now. At today's meeting, the committee also decided to double the pace of reductions in its asset purchases. Beginning in mid-January, we will reduce the monthly pace of our net asset purchases by $20 billion for Treasury securities and $10 billion for agency mortgage-backed securities. If the economy evolves broadly as expected, similar reductions in the pace of net asset purchases will likely be appropriate each month, implying that increases in our securities holdings would cease by mid-March, a few months sooner than we anticipated in early November. We are phasing out our purchases more rapidly because with elevated inflation pressures and a rapidly strengthening labor market, the economy no longer needs increasing amounts of policy support. In addition, a quicker conclusion of our asset purchases will better position policy to address the full range of plausible economic outcomes. We remain prepared to adjust the pace of purchases if warranted by changes in the economic outlook. And even after our balance sheet stops expanding, our holdings of securities will continue to foster accommodative financial conditions. To conclude, we understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can complete the recovery in employment, and achieve our price stability goal.